background on myself. I'm half Singaporean, half British. Been building apps for the past 15 years, um, 17 years. So since the mid 2000s, when the internet became a lot more Web 2, I was one of the first iPhone and Android developers. Um, Built the WikiLeaks mobile app. So in 2010, built the WikiLeaks mobile app. The government's froze our bank accounts. I bank accounts, Visa, Mastercard, PayPal. So we're forced to use Bitcoin as a means of staying operational. So I got my first Bitcoin at 9 cents. Since was an early investor in Ethereum, Solana, finance in 2017. So very much focused on crypto, digital assets. I worked for the third biggest VC in Europe, Wellington, at the time. We were seed investors in Spotify, so that was very much a Web 2 focused fund. I taught software engineering and coding at many of the big universities in the UK, London School of Economics, UCL, London Business School. So I have a very strong engineering background. Sold a video conferencing app, had a few million users, kind of similar to Zoom or Skype. My idea was building a encrypted video calling tool for places in the world which didn't have non-centralized communication tools. So that was really interesting. Grew to a few million users, sold in 2013. And to Master's point, now focused on unit network. And how this came about was I used to work also with this group called the Founders Forum. It's one of the most exclusive tech conferences in the world. To be invited, you need to have started a $500 million company. So, you talk to like the founder of Google, founder of Amazon, Skype, Telegram, like they all go to this event called the Founders Forum. And I sneaked into it in 2013. Then 2014, I rebuilt their systems, got to know the community well. And what it appeared to me was that all the money in the world is largely held by the investors, the owners, the founders of things. If you look at the richest people in the world, you look at the people who, control how society is operated, it's largely the equity holders. And what I thought was really cool with crypto is it really democratized that. If you look at how many people have ownership in something like Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana or BNB or many of these different coins, it's very much thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we create a society where the employees and customers were also stakeholders, not just the founders who started it, the employees who invested in those founders. So I thought this democratized cooperative economy was really exciting. And then the second thing was in 2017, we saw the mass interest into ICOs, right? ICOs maybe started in 2015 or 16, and in 2017, it properly kicked off. And I thought, isn't it cool how capital formation could be done with the blockchain, right? So invested in countless number of projects and things. And what I quickly realized was, to Marshall's point, that the tech around tokenization isn't there, right? So we built this really sophisticated piece of technology. It's called the unit network. I'll give you a demo to walk you through what it looks like. And, would love to answer some questions, love to see how we can build up the token economy in Scotland as well as the UK. As mentioned, we just opened an office in London. So let me share my screen to give you a bit of context, and then I can continue this presentation to kind of share with you a little bit about what we're doing. So this is here the unit network, and I think live demos are great because they really give some level of understanding. So it works in 30 different languages. Looks like a Web2 email password PIN login, but what this really does is it generates a private key. So the email password and PIN is used as a seed. So a lot of people call this account abstraction. We think that this is what's going to onboard billions of people into crypto and digital assets. So I'm going to create an account, invite Michael. So let's call it. Create an account really quick. And what this is doing, it's basically the seed for a private key. So, it's decentralized. It's easier than using 12 words. And what I'm showing, and this is another 12 words to set up that blockchain-based wallet or private key. And just like that, someone's created an account on your unit network. Here you can see different coins that user holds on the left. On the right, if they have maybe some bond staking done, they claim your rewards. So imagine a future where every single business, the same way as a social media account now, it has a website, websites came with the internet, social media came with mobile. We're convinced that every single business, every single person, 8 billion people are going to have their own coins, right? So here you'll be able to see your portfolio of different coins that you want a piece of. And if they have some kind of reward bond staking program where you can claim or locking up tokens, this is where you'll be able to claim it. So how does that look like? So I'm going to show you how easy it is to create an asset. You just hit on the menu, hit explore. These are the different chains it's connected to. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Polkadot, Binance. Polygon, Algorand, Avalanche, Near, Ton. So we built bridges to all of these different chains. So I'm going to create, let's say, an Eden cafe, right? So let's say I want to launch a cafe, very simple, or let's say a pizza shop, right? Right, create token, and then just like that, we've effectively created a digital entity, a token, similar to how you would set up a limited company or an LLC or a GmbH in Germany. You can change the tokens, how many supply it has. You can change the symbol, you can add a description, website, and all of this is happening on chain. So most blockchains, most apps, only the settlement is done on chain. With everything I'm showing you here, it's entirely on the unit blockchain. So what other tools or features does it have, which is really powerful? So it has an exchange. So if you want your businesses to be IPO'd or tradable, this is where there's an AMM being set up, kind of like Uniswap or PancakeSwap, where people can trade these tokens. There's a unit makes a 0.5% fee off every trade. There's a sale round. So if you're looking to raise money, let's say you have an idea for a business or a project, you can easily set up a sale round and you can raise money in Bitcoin, in Ethereum, in Solana, in Cosmos, in Ton. There's a bank. So when you raise money or when you invest or buy into a project, you can see exactly how much operationally the project has. So if it's got 5 months of runway or 7 months or a year or 2 years, is it generating revenue? Is it losing money? This is where it gets shown in the bank. But as with a lot of projects, it could do really well. Financially, it could make lots of money, but then they could still mismanage it. They could run away with it. They could spend it all, right? And that's a big risk. Or let's say you bought in it using Bitcoin. Bitcoin grows to $2 million. That's a lot of assets that the token holders who bought into the project might not receive. So there's this new concept called a treasury. So I think it's really revolutionary, not just for our industry, but for the entire world. And how it works is when you move tokens, coins, crypto money from the bank to the treasury, it sets the lowest price. So you can see the total supply is 100,000 here, right? If there was $1 million in the treasury, the lowest price would be $10 because basically there's a $10 of value of Bitcoin or Ethereum or USDT or USDC per coin in the treasury. And you can basically go into the treasury anytime and redeem from it. And why this is super interesting and revolutionary is because it sets a lowest price, sets a book value for tokens. So let's say if all of us bought into the pizza shop, Eden Pizza, right? We can basically value it by how much money it puts in its treasury. So if it puts in, $1 million in profit or retained earnings into the treasury, or put some of its marketing budget in the treasury, let's say $1 million, we can value it at 3 times earnings. So we think it should be a 3 million market cap, and we don't need to trust the operators of that business, right, to give us dividends. We don't have to trust them to not run away with the money. We basically can see once they put money in the treasury, how it's like a piggy bank, how fast it grows, and we can value it based on that treasury. Another example is, say you bought into the next Ed Sheeran, or you bought into the next Justin Bieber, or David Bowie, and you gave them $1,000 and they make $1 million and they make $100 million. They could still be a rock star and try and make $1 billion and mismanage and spend it all. But if they move it to the treasury, it basically provides some downside risk and insurance or protection to all the token holders. So if I own 10 Eden Pizza tokens, if the lowest price is 0, I know I could wake up tomorrow. If nobody buys it from me from the exchange, it could drop down to 0. But if it had, let's say, $3 in the lowest price and it trades at $10, I'm paying 70% speculative value, future earnings, discounted cash flow, 30% in underlying value. So, it's quite a simple concept of the idea of when a business or project or person generates profit and moves into this treasury. But why I think it's so revolutionary is it allows you to Masha's point, tokenize everything in the world, right? And what we've created here is effectively a global stock exchange. It's a global crowdfunding tool, where everyone can use crypto as a means of accruing capital. One thing I also haven't mentioned about, and maybe this is the final thing, maybe before, is, we've got a bunch of tools. So you can do everything from, governance. You can have like a mini Reddit. You can have polls, the governance piece. You can have an auction. So a bunch of really powerful tools that these tokens can benefit from. Subscriptions. You can create a store which can accept these tokens. You can meet other token holders. So these are really cool on-chain plugins that make it really easy to extend these tokens. And then finally, what I wanted to share was the banking side, right? So Unit's basically 3 things. It's a global stock exchange. It's a crowdfunding tool, and it's a bank. So we support all all these different stable coins. So USDTU, USDCU, so these are wrapped crypto. But we also support a USDU, EURU, JPYU, GBPU, AUDU, CADU, Swiss franc, Brazilian real, Canadian dollar, British pound, Japanese yen. And what these are crypto-backed decentralized stablecoins. And we think they're actually super interesting because contrary to most stablecoins, they are decentralized. You know, you can basically use crypto to issue them. It's backed up by crypto, so you can basically use a Bitcoin or use an Ethereum or a Solana to issue these stablecoins. And now these stablecoins are not backed up by, you know, a single bank or multiple banks which are holding custody of the fiat, but the crypto serves as the backing for these stablecoins. So the mission and vision behind this is, you know, making banking democratized, banking the unbanked, and, you know, giving these financial tools and services to 8 billion people. Yep. So that's a bit of intro. There's a lot of information. Like if you've got any questions or feedback, I'll leave my Telegram here. My username is just @Michael. So telegram.me/Michael. And love to collaborate, you know, team up, invest in businesses which are interested in using tokens. Does anyone have any questions or feedback? And I can love to talk about this.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. That was fascinating. Okay. So normally a company has like separately, okay, here's my fundraising mechanism, like like a bank infrastructure way to fundraising. And here's like how I manage my assets, like get customers to pay me on a daily basis. So I guess for most companies, these can't be like two detached things. So can you tell us, for this to work, do you like tell these things that join this? Like, now I want you to like to move your whole life, all your activity, all your communication, all your finances, like all of that, come and like join like my platform, and then if you do that, you get the best like valuation, the best benefit. So it's basically like kind of like all-encompassing basic functionality that you move. That's like, can you say something more about
that? To an extent. So I think, you know, this all-in-one kind of you know, app is one idea, but really the key is being this global stock exchange, crowdfunding tool, and bank. All of the other stuff around governance, subscriptions, the auction feature, the stores feature, these are just kind of cherry on the cakes. You know, how this came about was I worked at this really big fund in London and realized how unfair it is that, you know, 3,000, 4,000 people pitch us every year, and we would invest in seven companies. And these 7 companies, you know, we would, you know, it's just unfair that 2,900 people came up with an idea, needed a very small amount of capital, and, you know, almost impossible for them to raise money. And that's in, you know, a place like London. Same happens here in New York. Same happens in Hong Kong and Dubai. And if you're not in one of these big hubs, it's even more difficult, right? And I thought, wow, crypto can be this tool to really democratize and unlock the you know, fundraising, make capital much more available to people. And then what I noticed, I moved to Asia, and I invested in a bunch of businesses in Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia. I realized that people set up Singapore or Hong Kong companies, right, as the holding company. So people, you know, if let's say someone's running a business in Malaysia, right, or Thailand, right, it would be the same as setting up a business somewhere in Eastern Europe or Africa or South America. They would set up a UK holding company or a Singapore holding company, right, and that will be the only place where investors feel comfortable investing in, right? So I'm pretty confident that coins and tokens will be the holding company for every business in the world, right? So let's say you walk into your favorite pub in Liverpool or Manchester or Paris or whatever. They might have a local operating company, right? But the only thing that investors would buy into is the token where the profits move to, right? If it's a place where distributing profits and dividends and earnings is a regulatory or security issue, then what they move into the treasury is a cost. So the same way they spend money on marketing or salaries, they also spend money putting money into the treasury, and that's what people are comfortable buying into. They buy into a token which receives, you know, some money from this pub, whether you call it earnings or a cost. You know, if the pub makes, you know, £50,000 a year, you might value it at £200,000 a year, right? And then when the community owns a piece of it, they're going to make sure that, you know, there's activities going on every night. You know, if the prices go up of the menu, people are going to be much more loyal, and it's going to be a much more collaborative, community-based effort to make businesses successful. Also, what I noticed is that the liquidity is very challenging. So amongst businesses, unless it gets acquired or goes public, you know, a business, you know, has that stress of, you know, the founders, the investors not getting any return. So I've invested in a lot of companies where, you know, you kind of hope that it wins the lottery ticket of going on the stock exchange. or a big company like Google or Amazon will buy it up. And one thing cool about tokens is there might be no product, no business, no service, but it's tradable, right? So people are basically trading coins with no underlying product. So I think the next evolution is where you go into CoinMarketCap, you go into CoinGecko, you go into Binance, you go into these exchanges. It's going to be very real things, things with a product, things with a service, things with cash flow, even investing in people. Like I would love to have invested in a bunch of my friends who I thought had potential, or the ones who are struggling. I can say, hey, here's some money, here's some mentorship, here's some of my network, and have a much more economic vested stake. And the end goal is the internet really revolutionized how information is distributed. Right before the internet, you needed to pay someone lots of money to learn something. You needed to go to a library. You need to buy books in a bookshop, right? And the internet just made it available to everyone, right? The smartphone, it did the same to communication. Everyone in the world has a smartphone and they're able to communicate. So I think coins and tokens are going to do that to money. It's going to really revolutionize and democratize that aspect.
So there are like few different like use cases, and like I guess different projects or companies, protocols focus on different like verticals in tokenization. So let's say like fundraising for things to come, like that do not yet exist. Of course, it's like that's like a separate marketplace. Let's say here's my vision for a pub. I want to build a pub. I want to buy this like abandoned ruins and like make it up and make it a nice pub. So then I sell my vision and say, okay, come buy tokens so I can realize my vision. The other one's like, okay, someone have a pub that's profitable, want to sell like exit profitable pub, or someone says, no, I actually don't want to sell my pub. It's here's my revenue. I just want to like sell 10% of my value, just like kind of like keep it going, basically because I want to use that to expand. So there are many different like use cases in tokenization, and I think different like projects focus, they emphasize, okay, this is for this use case, like for fundraising for visions, this is like for selling your business, this is like just for like getting some liquidity. So which of these use cases, like do you cover all of them, or is this a one specific way that you want to reach?
Yep, great question. So I think, if you look at Instagram, right? Instagram didn't say this is a photo sharing app for a specific type of photographer, right? I also started one of the first dating apps in the UK. This app was initially focused at university students. And, when I started it, people didn't believe that meeting someone online would actually be a thing. They thought, okay, if they really struggle in the real world, they'll meet someone on the internet. And then, that maybe it'd be a bit weird if you meet someone online. Now, something like 30 or 40% of people meet their significant other online, right? So I guess in response, in sort of answering this question, I'm pretty confident that tokens will apply towards every single business, every single person. It will be tied very much to earnings. Our go-to-market and our approach to getting this out there is we're launching a bunch of city coins. We're launching a London coin, a New York coin, an Edinburgh coin, a Paris coin, a Zurich coin, a Dubai coin. And when these coins do well, economically, community-wise, we think that's what's going to attract countless businesses and people and, universities, research institutes, startups to issue tokens. Because I guess what we notice in crypto is, when the price goes up, the room is packed, everyone is interested. The price drops a bit, people disappear and they find other hobbies, right? And there's a few people, like the people in the room, who are, actually believing in the vision and mission, and then, they end up doing well financially and being part of the people that actually change and shape society. So I guess, in terms of our focus, we are launching a number of products, a decentralized Airbnb that's called Unit Stay, right? Where the fees are distributed amongst all the holders with the stay coins. We're launching the city coins. We're launching a bunch of university coins, kind of similar to how Facebook grew and spread. We're launching a poker app. So I used to play a lot of online and live poker. So it's like a heads up one-on-one poker app where some of the fees go to, or all of the fees go to all of the poker coin holders. We're also releasing a unit shop, like a decentralized Shopify. So a bunch of these apps, I think, are built on top of Unit. The big vision is, I was an investor in Binance in 2017, BNB at the crowd sale, and it grew to be the largest exchange. I think what Unit is doing can be much bigger because we're not just trading Bitcoin, we're not just trading Ethereum, Solana, BNB, we're trading every business in the world. So if you walk down the high street, of any big city, and you see, wow, look, there's a business there, there's a business there. Many of them probably have websites now. They probably have social media accounts, and they don't have tokens, right? And if you spoke to them about issuing a token, even as an engineer, it's still really troublesome to create an Ethereum token or a Solana token or a BNB token. I guess what I just showed you of Unit is how seamless it is, right? And the big picture is how can we create a relationship with money, which is very different from how society treats money and value at the moment. And my big excitement is, crypto has gone from, a few $100,000 to a few $1 million to hundreds of millions to billions, hundreds of billions, and now into trillions. I'm confident it will go into the tens of trillions and hundreds of trillions. And I think when that happens, how can we ensure that everyone in society gets a piece of that ownership and you're able to solve the big wealth inequity. So the big wealth inequity, the people with money are the founders, they're the investors, they're the owners and things. The vast majority of society is getting a salary, is looking for a job, is just surviving. And how can we create a society where everyone owns a piece of it and everyone's really uplifted and has much more opportunity?
Amazing. Anyone have any question? Please jump forward, yeah.
Hi. Given you're starting all these coins for all these towns, and the United States are creating a big resource in each state, you're going to start a coin for each of those states. And if you are, what's my commission for suggesting it?
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, we have been very mindful of issuing, a California coin, an Alaska coin, a Washington coin, because of how the SEC or the US regulators were viewing tokenized securities and crypto in general. But, I think now this new administration, the US, is going to, significantly embrace this industry. I was just in Mar-a-Lago a few weeks ago, Trump's home in Florida, and met with David Sachs, the new crypto czar. And, I'm so excited, to your point, how we can uplift these states and even counties. Like if you look at the UK, outside of, major hubs like, Manchester, Edinburgh, Liverpool, London, there's so many communities that just need a little bit of capital because there's so much potential there. And if we can create these coins for these states and suburbs, I'd love to team up with you. You didn't mention your name, but please drop me a message. And, I'd love to see how we can create these, to your point, state tokens together. And the cool thing is, getting a deal done, right? So a lot of investment bankers or brokers or middlemen, it's very hard to get a piece of the deal. But the cool thing about tokens is everyone can get a piece of it, right? So if you help facilitate a deal or you help, come up with an amazing idea, you're going to be part of that value creation. Versus if you look at modern day society, if you came up with a great idea, someone copies it, it's very hard. You have to go to court. You have to say, hey, that was my idea. Without me, you wouldn't have created it. The cool thing about tokens is, to this gentleman's point, value can flow and distribute much more quickly. But yeah, I'd love to collaborate and team up on that. To your point, I think there's so much opportunity in state coins and in county coins, town coins, really getting communities supporting one another. Please.
Hello. Hi. My name's Peter. Yeah, it's just a question about regulation. So if somebody's set up a project and local regulation comes knocking on the door and says, what we really think you've done here is done an equity release, and that's how we see it, how much support do you give, or how simple is it to explain to them that it's not an equity?
Good questions. So I think this, we've been running a number of years and very much focused on technology. We've built like 1,300 case studies of like a tokenized restaurant, tokenized road, tokenized solar power plant, like lots of, musicians. The reason why we've not pushed it more significantly is to the gentleman's point, regulatory reasons. And it was basically just the regulators in the US. I think almost every other regulator wants businesses to succeed or, isn't going to come after something if it's not, really, really big and, lots of investors didn't get, taken advantage of, right? So I think, we provide support, whether it's on our network or financing, not just to invest in projects, but to mentor, coach, build up these case studies. I think what will happen is the regulation will be much more embracing of this because it's much more transparent. It will distribute value much more equitably. It provides much more opportunities. I think a lot of people don't understand any of that. Even crypto people, I guess what we discussed today, it's very new to them. So if you talk to a non-crypto person, it's like a whole different world, right? And I kind of think it's similar to when social media came out. If someone told you I've got 300 followers, I'll be like, that's pretty strange. Like, are they stalking your every word, or why are they following you? What are they interested in? So it's like what does it mean when you like a you like a story or you like a post? It's like a different language, right? So I guess the mission is how do we, communicate this to the regular everyday person where they can see it just makes a lot of sense. It's very simple. It's very easy. I benefit piece from it. If a business told you, if you followed them on social media, you get a discount, now it's very easy to understand that. Now if they told you, hey, you should buy some of our tokens and trade on the exchange, a bunch of people are like, okay, I really don't know what this person's talking about. But in the next couple of years, it's just going to be very normal. People are going to be much more supportive of one another. It'll be much more easy to raise financing. The idea of an investor will be much more mainstream. I think 8 billion people will be investors. Regulation will be much more favorable. There'll be much less dependence on governments, is my bet. Yep.
Right, any more questions? All right, just to finish the final question. So anyway, so tell us about, imagine there's like a coin for Edinburgh, like an Edinburgh coin, what does this mean? What would that mean in practice? And who would it benefit? And what's the social value and what's the value to society?
Good question. So, if you look at Bitcoin or Ethereum, people were extremely, extremely skeptical when it first came out. I was at a meetup like this in 2011, right? And, there was someone who was an even bigger advocate for Bitcoin than I am, right? Or that I was. And he was telling people, guys, just buy a bit of this Bitcoin. It's like, you just buy it the same way you would buy some beer and it will change your life. And nobody was convinced about it. If you think how many people in the world were like this gentleman, I would say less than 3,000 people, right? Or maybe 10,000 people held Bitcoin at that time. And maybe a few hundred people in the world were as big proponents, right? You go to a meetup, it's like 3 or 4 or 5 people. You can't even fill a table, right? So when this economy grew, when more people put money in it, and these people sold businesses, made a salary, made more money, they bought more Bitcoin. All the people in this Bitcoin country kind of did better. Bitcoin price went up. They did well. And I call that the Bitcoin token economy, right? But geographically, it represented the whole world, right? It didn't stand for anything more. Well, I guess it stood for a few things, but the main thing it stood for is the technology, right? I think the next evolution is where you see much more focused token economies, right? Meaning there'll be one for different geographies. There'll be one for different industries. There'll be one for different ethnicities. There'll be one for companies, right? So if, I grew up in Edinburgh, if I lived in Edinburgh, the Edinburgh coin means a lot more to me than if I've never even been to Edinburgh. I've never even heard of it. I don't even know anyone from Edinburgh, right? So I think people will construct their portfolios the same way they follow different accounts. Someone might follow, beautiful Edinburgh pictures on TikTok or Instagram, right? And they see, wow, this is, or Edinburgh in the 50s, right? You see some of those retro images and they're like, wow, I can't believe this high street looked like that at that point in time. So I think the next evolution is beyond meme coins, beyond NFTs, beyond ICOs, beyond protocol coins. It's going to be things that represent communities, and it's going to be backed up by earnings of these communities, or it'll be backed up by a pool of capital that was initially raised for funding that community. So what we're doing with these city coins is we're launching a launch coin before them. We're selling 150 places for $100, so $15,000. We're growing these launch coins, and then we're doing a main coin. And these launch coins convert to a main coin. The main coin is 1,000 people, $1,000 each, so it's $1 million. And now these city coins are backed up by that $1 million, right? So you could say, hey, what is the point of these city coins? Well, if the community and if the societal economic value doesn't mean anything, then at least it's backed up by that $1 million that was initially raised. And when that $1 million in crypto goes up, someone who didn't hold any Bitcoin or Ethereum holds some, of a city's coin, and they indirectly have exposure, right? But what we're optimistic for is the community around that city or that industry will focus on tokenizing businesses which create value, have earnings, have cash flow, and it's effectively, I think, what will catalyze the growth towards this token economy. Same way, ICOs in 2017 pushed our space significantly forward, right, by getting a lot more people interested, and a bunch of money was made and then it was lost. Same as what NFTs did in 2021. I think that's the next phase for our industry. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We're going to share the recording of this with our many followers online as well. So thank you so much for joining us.
And if anyone loves to reach out, love to keep in touch, I'm Michael Healy, CEO on Twitter as well as Telegram. I'm just at Michael on Telegram on my direct handle. And please connect with Mache or myself. So thanks.
Thank you so much for joining. Bye-bye.
Thank you for your time.